And we're live. Welcome to Lakers Late Night. I am Anthony Irwin. I am joined by Silver Screen and Rolls, Tom Fear, and I am also joined by the sickest man I know, Justin Russo, who watched that game by choice and said he enjoyed three-quarters of it.
And he's not a Lakers fan either. He voluntarily subjected himself to it.
Somebody like you that scene where where Mel Gibson gets his insides ripped out in Braveheart, you're reaching that level of martyrdom in watching that game. How'd you hold up?
It was, it was all right. It wasn't in terms of what I expected. I actually thought like I said, the first three quarters I actually found enjoyable. I thought there was enjoyable moments. The fourth quarter kind of it hit that lull where neither team could score. And it was just oh, now I know why these two teams are probably bad. So,
Yep.
Yeah. I get it now. I got it.
We're sorry to our audience that Anthony just spoiled Braveheart for.
Spoiler alert. Mel Gibson loses a lot of weight in that movie.
He becomes a shorter man.
Slim fast. Tom, were you managing the tweets for Silver Screen and Roll tonight?
Yeah.
Gotcha. How was that for you?
It was interesting. Of course, I made fun of Kobe somewhat, so there were a few angry tweets, but...
Hold on 2 seconds. You guys go ahead and talk amongst yourselves. I have to let my wife into the house. Go.
Okay. No, it was a fine atmosphere. I had some fun with it, but it was just a sort of a depressing game overall. And Anthony's back.
Well, I was gonna ask you is if you're kind of taking a dig, not like a dig at Kobe, because
Right.
I mean it's kind of the truth after a while. He's heaving bad shots, so it's do people react really negatively to that?
We have a good audience for the most part, but
Okay.
with every fan base, and especially with Lakers fans, there's some they'll just get angry over anything that's symboling criticism toward Kobe. So, I tweeted a mostly joking thing because it was obviously out of respect. But at the end of the game, I was like, Philadelphia fans are chanting Kobe, Kobe, Kobe. It's unclear whether it's out of respect or they're thanking him for helping secure a win for the winless team. and so, of course, a couple of people were like, oh, come on, man, it's Kobe. And a couple of people were like, hey, who cares? Let him go out his own way. I'm basically like, he's getting to go out his own way. But that does not exempt him from criticism or even mockery, which we do sometimes.
Yeah, Kobe deals with enough privilege from the Lakers themselves from being above somehow criticism. He doesn't get criticized in house. We get to criticize. We get to take him out to the outhouse.
Right. You got it.
No, go ahead, Tom. You got it.
I was just gonna say it's if he was just okay and he was shooting 40% and he had 18 points and 3 assists and 2 rebounds. That's not a good game, but I wouldn't be crushing him for it. But, if he's shooting 7 of 26 and playing bad defense and not really distributing the ball and not really rebounding, then I think it's a pretty fair game.
He was 2 of 16 after the first quarter.
Yeah.
That's... Yeah, I don't even think there's a word for that.
And he started off 3 of 4, which means he finished, 4 of 22?
Yeah, that's at a certain point, I guess at a certain point, there's the prevailing thought, oh, shooters got to shoot to get out of slumps, but it's at what point is it a slump? And at what point is it that's just how he is?
He doesn't have the legs anymore. They're gone.
Yeah, he doesn't.
I do have a question that I raised with Justin here a second ago, and I think it's becoming more and more viable a question. It started as a super hot take, but now we're reaching that point where it starts to become a legitimate question. Does Kobe give a single flying F about this team based off of the way he's playing? Because this isn't helping the young kids. This is only helping himself. This is actively hurting the team. And his coach can't exactly call him on him, although Byron came as close as he might tonight. I don't know, at what point does the question get lofted actually to him and say, hey, you realize you're hurting this team this way. Do you actually care about it? Justin, from the outside looking in, is that becoming viable?
It's becoming viable to me on the scale of like his body language on the court. Like tonight, there was a few times where he would make a bad pass and they turned it over, and he'd just sit there and smack his hands, and he wouldn't run back on defense, or he'd take a shot. Like it's almost like he's kind of just there to ride out the season, which is fine if it's your final season. But I also like his retirement. Like the fact he announced his retirement is good because at least then some people can stop asking him questions, like about when are you going to retire, you know. So he kind of like nipped that in the bud. But the other problem was by saying it's his last season, he kind of opens it up to where now he can just do things and just say, "I'm out of here at the end of the year anyways." Like, what are you guys going to say? You know, so it's like he's almost like giving himself carte blanche to do what he wants.
He's been given it, but
Yeah.
Tom, is that something that's crossed your mind at all?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's. There are some moments where you could say, "Oh, Kobe's being, he's being selfish and he doesn't care about the team at all." I think it's probably more along the lines of this is just the only way Kobe knows how to play, and he just can't do it anymore. Like, I think he wants the young guys to do well. I think he wants them to develop, and I think he wants the Lakers to be good after he's gone. But whether he's putting enough focus on that, I think, is a very fair question. And
But I'll go ahead and finish.
no, that was it.
Well, I'll put it like this. We all have that friend that we hang out with that just pulls shady stuff a lot, whether they're late to everything, whether you don't trust them with your girlfriend, whatever it might be. And like for a long time, you sit there and you say, you explain it away. Well, it's just so-and-so. Well, it's just so-and-so. Well, it's just so-and-so. But eventually you're like, that friend's an a-hole, right? Like, you realize this guy's a tool bag that we probably are better off without.
How's Jen doing?
She doesn't see that friend very often, I'll put it that way.
Just kidding.
What's funny is she like walked right by me as you asked. But but like Justin, we all have that friend, and eventually the rest of the Lakers team, if not the organization, because they'll never say that, he's their cash cow. But the rest of the Lakers team might start to say, you know what? F that guy, man. Like, he's calling us soft as Charmin. He's getting no criticism, not from the media, not from, Baxter Holmes and Bill Oram have been really good. But he's not getting it from the coach at all. At what point do they say, you know what? Go ahead, have your day, Kobe, but we can't wait for you to retire?
It's hard to say because out of respect for him, I think they're going to hold off longer than they would with other people. But at the same time, for instance, like Roy Hibbert, for instance, he's new to the team. He's new to the organization. For a guy like him who was used to being in Indiana, being part of a winning culture, being part of an actual team where everyone's building to one goal, now it's like he comes into the Lakers and it's basically just we're just going to let Kobe do what he wants and everybody else just figure it out. And it's like for Roy Hibbert, I think he'll be quicker to the trigger than anybody else.
That's a good point.
And I think he's going to start like I've tweeted like a couple of days ago. It's going to be really interesting when Roy Hibbert hits free agency and if he goes somewhere else to hear his takes on the Lakers, because that's going to be like he might have some just ridiculous takes on how they acted behind the scenes and stuff. And maybe they trade him during the season. I don't know, but once you start alienating one veteran, then the other veterans are going to follow, and then even the young guys are going to follow them. Mm-hmm. It's like a domino effect.
This seems like something that we'll have a much better idea on in like 5 years, because that like if Baxter Holmes in 5 years writes a book about the final years of Kobe and just the awkwardness around it and how everything happened, because there are questions we don't know the answer to. Like, is he good in practices right now? Is he actually teaching the young guys valuable things, or is he just appearing to? That truthfully we can't answer unless we're covering the team on a very close basis. And frankly, if we were covering the team, I mean, we cover him closely, but I'm talking about like in the practices, talking to people. And if we were doing that regularly, frankly, we probably might want to say some of this stuff on the record anyway. So this seems like something that we just might not know the answer to, maybe ever, but maybe at least for a few years.
Yeah, I mean,
it's going to take a while.
It gets to a point where you start, and the issue with reading body language is that you start to look for certain things.
Yeah.
And there was a GIF from a few games ago, I think it was from a couple weeks ago even, where Kobe took a shot, and both Russell and Clarkson were on the court at the same time. And Tom, I don't know if you're laughing about it, but the shot goes up, and both of them just kind of go like, "Man, this guy." Like,
Oh, I saw that. Yeah,
you know, where the shot goes up, and they're like, "All right, there's Kobe," you know, and while the explanation can be that Kobe gets an extra level of respect because he is Kobe, the other side of it can be like, you know what? It really sucks to see our hero this big an asshole all the time, you know.
What I was laughing at was it just made me think of Jeff Goodman. And you talk about when you look for body language, you start looking for things. That's absolutely true. And it's a lot of confirmation bias. Like, for example, when Wiggins would put his hands behind his hips, which we now realize he does all the time. But like Jeff Goodman saw him do that early in Kansas and be like, man, Wiggins, he just, he doesn't look like he cared. Maybe he's tired. I don't know. It's just like, no, that's just what he does. But in terms of that, yeah, and it's frustrating because my bigger, obviously Kobe's an issue, but my bigger issue has been Byron Scott. I've been very vocal about this. But this just does not seem like a healthy environment for young players to try and develop under. It doesn't seem like they have an offensive system. It doesn't seem like they have a defensive system. It doesn't seem like they have good leadership from veteran players. And the players that you might look to for veteran leadership are really, really bad right now. And I can imagine why it would be incredibly frustrating for D'Angelo Russell and Jordan Clarkson, Julius Randle, but I don't know in terms of their body language.
Now,
Yeah.
that's a perfect segue, and I wanted to make sure I give you credit for this because it was so good. The title of this category right now is Kobe being Byron because the two just go so well hand in hand. And I interviewed last night. I interviewed Matt Moore for the Lakers Lounge that's running on Friday.
You did?
I did.
I'm excited to listen to that.
It's going to be really good. He was phenomenal. So shout out
Matt's
to
great.
Matt for that. He was really, really good and super gracious with his time, all that good stuff. And he said that you look at the Lakers and they have pieces like Jordan Clarkson, D'Angelo Russell, Larry Nance, and Julius Randle should be really fun to watch. Like those guys should be able to get out and run and be really fun to watch, but they're not because Byron's a moron. And again, I like to get the outside perspective on this because we're so heavily invested in watching this team and focusing so much on this team. But Justin, is Byron as maddening for somebody who doesn't have a vested interest in this?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I'm sure you guys have seen like my tweets when I watch Laker games. I'm just like, what is he doing? Because I complain about how Doc Rivers manages rotations and cycles through stuff a lot. And it's like, and then I watch Byron Scott. It's like, man, like how the hell does this guy get a job? Like, look, it didn't take me more than 3 minutes to realize Brandon Bass can't play center. You don't need to keep putting him there. I don't understand why you need 20, 25 games to see it. Like, it's like, for instance, like I can equate it to Doc Rivers playing Jamal Crawford and Paul Pierce together. If you know they can't do it for 15 minutes, why do you need to see it for 150 minutes? Like, you don't need to see it. Like, at a certain point, you know what the truth is.
Yeah.
It's like you don't need to play Randall and Bass together. That would never work in a million years. Like if you're going to play Larry Nance and Julius Randle, that's fine, but make sure that they have ball handlers out there with them, like a Russell and a Clarkson, so at least it's somebody else to space the floor. Like you can't play Metta World Peace and Julius Randle together along with Larry Nance because there's not enough shooting and spacing. So it's like when guards penetrate into the paint, what's everyone going to do? They're just going to collapse on the guard and that's it. So it's like Byron doesn't understand. I talked with it before with a couple of people. It's like he doesn't install a pick and roll scheme that actually works. It's like everyone's too loaded on the same side of the court, so it kind of bogs everything down the pick and roll. And the only thing that's saving the pick and roll a lot of the time is D'Angelo Russell's passing. Because if he didn't pass as well as he did, a lot of the passes wouldn't get there. Like tonight, he had like 3 great passes that were phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like. And that's the problem is, how do you not just run a pick-and-roll scheme? And, like, you have Russell to run it. Clarkson can run it, too, but you can use him as the weak side, too. So, I equate it to basically what the Clippers run with Griffin and Paul, And you can do that with Russell and Randall, and then have Clarkson as your Redick to a lesser degree because he's not as great as a shooter, but he can still do similar things. He can attack closeouts. He can initiate pick and rolls himself. He can dribble, drive, and kick. It's like, and then all you have to do is stick Kobe in a corner, but Kobe's never going to do that.
This is a very minor point, but this is one of the reasons I was frustrated that the Lakers kept Meta on the roster instead of bringing on Michael Frazier, I forget how you say his name, the third, the great shooter out of Florida. Because I always really liked his game, and if you have guys that can run pick and rolls, you need people on the outside to space the floor and shoot it. And I thought he was an intriguing guy to take a flyer on, and instead they took a flyer on Meta, who was washed up 3 years ago, let alone now. But in going back to Byron and just spacing and the ball movement and the scheme, I forget who this was, but someone tweeted it probably last week or earlier this week. It said, there are times when the Lakers are running their offense, and it looks like players want to move off the ball, but it looks like they don't know where to go or what to do, and that's coaching. That's bad coaching.
I agree, and it's on both sides of the ball too, right? Where you have habits that are formed. And at this point, they check down on pinch posts so often that you have to think that they're being coached to do so, and they're leaving open shooters in the process. And it's like eventually a good coach would step in and say, hey guys, somebody who is being guarded one-on-one in the post is way less deadly than a wide-open shooter, especially in the corner. And unfortunately, a lot of times, because of either the initial pass going to the corner or the initial pass going to the wing, then you have to rotate away from the corner to manage that wing, and then the second pass gets to the corner. Eventually, a good coach would step in and say, we can't keep allowing that.
Anthony, that's because Byron knows what you don't, and that's that threes do not win championships.
I was actually going to say that's the late 80s, early 90s, because it's like, posting up, we got to crash down on them and force someone to make a jumper. But it's like, you can't live like that anymore. That's not the NBA that we live in. Now you want a guy to post you up, because if he's posting up, that's basically like the best post players in the game now average maybe a point per possession.
Maybe.
Like, I think Blake Griffin led the league, and he was like 1.15 or something. It's like, I'd rather a guy post me up all day than just shoot open threes.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to be smart about it. It's like he's stuck in a time of the NBA where isolation and basically like you're initiating,
machismo.
but you're also initiating a lot of your offense to bigs at the elbows. And just having guys cut and the weave actions, the UCLA cuts, and it's like it doesn't work like that anymore. Like, you need better movement.
Right.
And he doesn't know how to install it. I just don't think he does, because his other offenses, like if you look at his offense in New Orleans with Chris Paul, and you look at his offense in New Jersey with Jason Kidd, and even I guess Cleveland with Kyrie Irving, but to a lesser extent because that team was lacking talent mostly. But it's like he had these point guards. And this isn't against D'Angelo Russell at all, obviously, but it's like he had these point guards who were so amazing, they could get wherever they wanted to on the floor. So it opened everything up for guys like Peja Stojakovic and Richard Jefferson and Kenyon Martin and David West and Tyson Chandler. Like, they had all these options. It's like they don't have that because he's not trusting the point guard enough, and he's giving the ball to isolation players like a Lou Williams, a Nick Young, a Kobe Bryant to do something. That's not how it works.
Are you trying to insinuate that Byron is not, in fact, the point guard whisperer, and that he just happened to have 3 potentially Hall of Famer point guards on his team? Are you trying to say that?
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to say it. I am saying it.
Oh.
I remember one night I was watching the Lakers postgame show, and it blew my mind hearing James Worthy talk about how Byron doesn't call plays that's on the point guard as like an indictment of how D'Angelo Russell's playing. It's like, okay, well, you can't say that the coach doesn't call plays, the point guard does, and then give Byron Scott credit for all the point guards who played well under him. Like, that's not how that logic works.
I've made this comparison many times, but I've said that Byron is basically like an NBA 2K coach. Like, he doesn't actually do anything during the game. He just stands there with his arms crossed. Like, he's not actually calling plays. You're doing whatever you want with your point guard. Your team's doing whatever. It made me realize this last year when the Lakers were in like an obvious fouling situation or whatever, and like Jeremy Lin was up top, and he looked to Byron to see whether he should foul or not. He was like, "Should I foul?" And Byron just stood there like this, like just looking straight ahead, deadpan. Everybody was like, "Do I foul? Do I foul?" And in the background, Kobe's like, what the fuck is happening? He just runs up and like grabs the dude. It's like, dude, what the heck?
I remember that, and people blame Jeremy Lin for that. It's like,
Yeah,
that's,
no. Well, I mean,
that's
like
not on the players.
partially, he should realize that he should foul, but the fact that he was looking for his coach to guidance and he was just like not doing anything. I just want like, what is? It's like that Office Space when you sit down to meet with the Bobs, and they're just like, what is
do you do here?
say you do here, Byron?
Now here's the question that you have to carry this conversation over to is, at what point does enough become enough? Just like with Kobe, at what point do you realize he's just that a-hole friend? With Byron, at what point do you realize this guy is hurting the future of the organization because of how poorly he is managing these kids? And for me, tonight is that night. Tonight is that night where you lose to a Philly team. There was, what, 0-18?
Just like bad. They're terrible. Like, they're just bad.
They're not good. They don't have
bad.
Yeah, they're historically bad.
They were winners.
Yeah.
So, like, you lose to an 0-18 team, and in my opinion, get like beyond outcoached. Brett Brown coached that game up and down compared to Byron, making certain adjustments, saying, you know what, it looks like Byron wants to go to Kobe anyway. Let's not even think about doubling. But Kobe, you look open. Go for it, buddy. And then involving Robert Covington as much as he possibly can, right? Because that's who Kobe is guarding. And he knew that as he's doing all this, Byron isn't going to pull out Kobe. Byron's going to ride his boy. And as he said it after the game, and here's where we get to play Harrison's favorite game.
Byron quotes?
Byron quotes. Byron, and this is on Kobe's shots, but I think this extends to Kobe's entire game. There's going to be some games like that where you just have to live and die with it. You just hope that you don't die too much. Hey, Byron, the entire team is dying.
They're dying.
They're not dying. It's just the horse is dead.
They're dead.
Like, now you're just kicking the horse.
They got killed by Philadelphia. They got murdered by the Sixers.
Yeah.
Well done, Byron. And for me, and here's the thing, is that to this point, and I've been racking my brain for a reason. Hey, what could I possibly come up with as a reason to fire this guy? And here's what it finally is that if I'm the Lakers organization, and I'm saying I'm sick of being the carpet everybody gets to walk on. I'm sick of being the butt of all these jokes. We are supposed to be the poster child of greatness in the NBA. Right. We cannot continue to tell these kids that we're going to employ this loser while he is continuing to hurt their future.
And that's why I wonder about whether a change might be coming soon. Because the Lakers, what I've gotten the impression from following the team, the Lakers and the front office and the owners, more than anything, care about the franchise's image. And they do not, I imagine they do not want to be a laughingstock. And it's just getting embarrassing. Nick Young just now, after the loss to the 76ers, he said this puts the Lakers at the bottom of the totem pole and said that the Lakers need to stop being, quote, a circus act. I mean, Nick Young is saying that.
Yeah. Well, Nick Young, I took it as Nick Young taking a shot at Kobe. What was it, a couple games ago when he said some people just need to, we need to play more team ball or something like that. I was like, man, like if people like Nick Young are saying that at a certain point, I mean, like people can laugh at that as Nick Young delivering those quotes, but I mean, every so often someone that's a joke that tells jokes all the time can actually tell the truth.
Right.
Right. And the point, so when I'm watching the Clippers play sometimes, because I watched the Clippers play against the Warriors, and I thought Luke Walton outcoached Doc Rivers in that game. Luke Walton, who was brand new to the game, who's brand new to the game, he has 0 actual wins on his record, still, after going undefeated for a month. And you had mentioned after that game, or maybe a game or two later, that it's probably time for Doc to go at the end of the season. And this is going to be after a year where they make the playoffs. They lost to that Warriors team who fired Mark Jackson after making the playoffs. And for all these teams to say, you know what, these coaches are real, they're doing a decent job. They're getting us to this certain level, but they're still not good enough for us. How is it that the Lakers are saying this guy is the worst coach in franchise history and we're going to keep him around? And like I think, Tom, I completely agree with you that, yeah, they don't want to be a laughingstock, and they're turning that into under Byron.
at a certain point, you have to stop waking up and looking in the mirror and just glossing over the zit on your face, just going, "Oh, that'll go away one day." At a certain point, you have to do something about it.
I agree.
You know,
I
like,
agree.
That's quite a metaphor right there.
well, I mean, he's a zit. Like he won't go away until you make him go away, and it's like no one's doing it. I mean, I heard the thing. I don't know how true it is because obviously, I don't cover the Lakers or anything, but I heard that a rumor was that Mitch Kupchak finally told Byron Scott he had to keep playing D'Angelo Russell more. I don't know how true that is, but I mean, at a certain point, if Byron's not getting it, you got to can him. And I think they might do it when they get back from the trip. Although the risk that runs is now whoever the interim coach is can basically might diminish Kobe's retirement tour.
Right.
I just,
Let's go ahead.
I was wondering, Justin, as an outsider, and like some of us in our circle of Lakers fans have been hoping for this for a little while now. What do you think the percentage chances that Luke Walton is the head coach of the Lakers in 2017?
That's tough because I don't know if Luke Walton would leave the Warriors. And the only reason I would say that is because I think a lot depends on Steve Kerr's health.
Oh, sure.
Because if that spinal thing that he's dealing with is bleeds into because I've heard some stuff where he might be out until at least the All-Star break.
Ooh.
So it's like if Steve Kerr's not able to come back in a relatively short amount of time, I mean, I could see Luke Walton even coaching next year for them, and Steve Kerr just really waiting just to get healthy, because that spine thing's that's a big deal. I mean, the other thing is you have to see what other jobs are out there. Obviously, Luke Walton loves the Lakers, and he would love to probably be the coach of the Lakers. And I think that it would be good for him to be the coach of the Lakers the year after Kobe's there, simply because then there's less turmoil about, he can just play the young guys and build them. But at the same time, it's like I don't know how much of Luke Walton that's been coaching is really a lot of him and a lot of the assistant coaches that have helped. Because Golden State's assistant coaches are great. The offense they have is the Alvin Gentry offense that he helped install during his year there. And so I don't know how much of it is like Luke Walton in terms of X's and O's, I don't know.
Yeah.
But in terms of how he manages minutes and rotations, he's fine. He's very good. So based on that alone, I think he would be a very good head coach for the Lakers. If I had to put a percentage chance on it, I'll say 50. I'll say 50-50 because I still have to see how Steve Kerr comes back health-wise and all the other stuff.
It does seem like, and maybe he'll view this as positive, coming off of this season, he probably would have quite a bit of a leash, which would be nice.
Yeah. And plus, I mean, that first year, and at least the first 2 years, and be like, Luke, you're coaching young guys. We don't expect you to go crazy here. Like, right. If you get them playing well, that's good enough.
All right, speaking of young guys, we'll just kind of wrap up here. We went a little bit longer on the Kobe, Bean, Byron conversation than I anticipated. We're only 2 viewers away from 69, and that'd be nice. But
you should just anticipate now that when you have me on talking about Byron, it's probably going to go longer than you plan it.
That's how it goes.
I like to complain.
I do think tonight and for the majority of the season, Jordan Clarkson has been the Lakers' most consistent player. Mm-hmm. Roy Hibbert was pretty good at the beginning of the year. He was okay. But I think for the most part, when the Lakers need a bucket and the ball in Jordan Clarkson's hand, I think that's when I feel the most comfortable. And that's a pretty way to gauge it. What did he finish with tonight? I think he finished with 21 points, 2 assists.
19 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists on 9 of 19, which isn't bad. I mean, it's basically 50%. So.
And he's doing that. I mean, I've noticed. I think the first thing I noticed was the last game, where teams are really game planning for him turning the corner on the pick and roll and making sure to flatten him out. And if he's continuing to score in that 20-point range, with teams game planning against him, I don't know how much more legit a case you have to make for a guy being at least a good, if not really good player. From the outside perspective, though, well, no, I've gone with the outside first, all these times. So, Tom, what are you continuing to see from Jordan Clarkson, and could he or should he break Kobe's knee so that he gets a few more shots more often?
I'll just say this: I had some, probably unfair hesitance about Jordan Clarkson because I'm a fan of Kansas basketball, and he comes from Missouri basketball. We don't like each other very much around here, as you may know. But no, I was a little bit cautious coming off last year, especially before the season was over. I was like, well, like maybe he can be pretty good one day, but if he can't shoot, his ceiling's still not very high. He looks really good. His shot looks really good when he gets this beat set. It's been very, very consistent, not only in terms of percentages, but just where the shot hits. It looks like it's dead on every time. He's super athletic. He seems to get shots out of nothing sometimes. And honestly, I don't know if the numbers back this up because, yeah, his usage is only a little bit down from last year, but it certainly seems like he's not being featured as much, whereas last year it was just, hey, Jordan Clarkson and Tarek Black, you go out there with 3 random guys and run a whole lot of pick and rolls and get buckets. And that's what he did really well. But it seems like he's getting a lot of buckets without being featured a lot, so maybe he could be even better if he was featured in the offense more.
All right, really briefly, because we still got to hit on Okafor and Russell, what we saw from those two tonight. Even though there's not really much you can glean from tonight on those two, but Justin, from somebody who doesn't watch the team every single game, and from somebody who doesn't kind of keep an eye out for highlights on Jordan Clarkson, I mean, would you, if the Lakers or if the Clippers, so let's say the Clippers had a bunch of money to spend this offseason, and they spent a bunch of it on Jordan Clarkson to back up Chris Paul, would that be a move that you would be comfortable with?
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it. I mean, especially because it would get rid of Jamal Crawford, so I always have that to look forward to.
And or Austin Rivers.
No, I will not deal with Austin Rivers slander today. I will not deal with that today. No, I think Clarkson can fit a lot of offenses. I really like when he's off the ball and they run him with those little flares, with those like they flare him to the wing for catch and shoot threes. I like that. He can do some things. Like he's doing more now than what I thought he could do when he came into the league. So that's always a plus. Like he struggled to shoot sometimes at Missouri. So the fact that he's able to do it now at an adequate level is a big deal. It shows progress. I kind of rival it to what Alec Burks did coming out of Colorado, where Burks struggled to shoot. He was more of a slasher. And they're kind of the same guy. Like, they do a lot of the same things really well. And I think the problem for Clarkson is the situation he's currently in. Whereas last year, as you said, he ran a lot of pick and rolls himself as the ball handler. Now it's kind of Russell doing it. But the one thing that is a great thing to see from Clarkson is he adapted. And the fact he adapted in one offseason, that's a huge glowing heap of praise for him. So going forward, I don't know what he can do going forward, but I think he could be a really good starter. And that's if you get that out of a second round pick, that's money.
Right, that they purchased. They didn't even draft him.
Yeah, exactly.
And going off just sorry, I know you're trying to wrap it up. Going off the improved shot, he's not only, making a lot more, but he's a lot more comfortable, you can tell. I think his 3-point rate percentage, which means the percentage of shots that he takes, how much of them are three-pointers, it's up like 8% or something this year. So I think it's pretty clear he worked on it a lot in the offseason, and I think it's paying dividends.
Yeah, it's good to see out of a young guy.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I mean, I don't know what else you would ask for from a young guy. It's just continue to add to his game as need be. All right, lastly, before we get out of here, Okafor versus Russell. Who's the bust? Justin, go.
Okafor. I'll just go Okafor. Like, someone asked me on Twitter tonight, like, why do I hate Okafor? I don't hate Okafor. I just don't like his game.
It doesn't fit this era. It doesn't fit this era.
At all. If he came 10 years ago, yeah, maybe. Like, I don't like his game at all. I don't like how he takes jumpers more now than he should. I don't like how soft he is around. I don't mean to say soft as like weak. I just mean he when he's around the rim, he doesn't go up strong. Kind of flips the ball up at the rim. He has no vertical explosion whatsoever. His rebounding's not good. His defense, you might as well just put a traffic cone out there. I mean, it's
a very tall traffic cone,
a 7-foot traffic cone. Maybe a wacky waving inflatable arm two man.
Yes, there you go.
That might be better on
wacky inflatable arm waving two man might have better rim protection. I'm not sure.
I think so. He's liable to block a shot every now and then. But I come away from every game with the Lakers, and I watch Sixers games and the Lakers. I watch a lot of teams, but it's like with Russell, I've never come away from a game with Russell and been like, I don't like how he played.
Mm-hmm.
It's like because you see the passing, you see the vision, you see the flair that he plays with, you see the ease, the simplicity of his jumper, even if he's missing short. It's like everything's easy, and that's the thing that you want the most out of a guy.
And the issues seem fixable. Tom, did you see anything tonight that, and I know that you are heavily on the side, I believe, heavily on the side of the Lakers made the right move going with Russell and Okafor. Do I have that right? Just make sure.
Yeah, I mean, for most of the year last year, like D'Angelo Russell was my favorite college player. I knew Towns was the best prospect, but I just loved watching D'Angelo Russell whenever he was on. And I think at one point, even before he had risen on draft boards, I was just like, screw it, I want D'Angelo Russell over anyone. And the Lakers ended up with him. But coming towards draft night, I started getting a little bit more hesitant. I think maybe I talked myself into Okafor because the talk in the weeks up to the draft was Okafor, and then the day of the draft, it started being like, oh no, it might be Russell, and then it was Russell. But no, I think I would have taken Russell, but I'm not sure with how much certainty I would have made that pick. But Okafor, to be honest, watching tonight, I didn't notice him very much. He was just sort of there. And
I agree.
And maybe it's because I'm specifically watching Russell a lot, but I noticed a lot of good things. And every game, I come away from a game thinking, D'Angelo's defense is better than I thought it would be. D'Angelo made some good passes on that sequence. D'Angelo, knew when to look for his shot right there. He seems to be getting it, and he seems to be getting better. So I think he's going to be really good.
D'Angelo Russell killed Nerlens Noel tonight. That was cool to see.
He did. That was nice. Ben Rosales pointed out it was mostly because it looked like he was waiting for Russell to dish at the last second, and he never did, and just dunked on him. He was like, "Oh, oops."
Well, you will not water this down for me. He murdered him. He murdered him and his ancestors.
He is dead.
That's also because he had that play earlier in the game when he drew Noel to him, and he head faked with his eyes and passed. So it's like Noel at that point was like, I don't know what the heck he's doing.
You're right. He tricked an awesome defender twice, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's reading the defense perfectly.
Yep.
All right, so we'll end on this. We have 5 seconds apiece to answer this question. Really, 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 really quickly, because we're bordering on, I think, 40 minutes or so of this show. But between those two, do you think, this will be a yes or no question, do you think the Lakers would have allowed themselves a little bit more room for error had they drafted D'Angelo Russell? And then the second part to the yes or no question is, would you still side with Russell if that's the case? Do those two make sense?
No.
So, if the Lakers had drafted Russell, do you think that fans would be clamoring the way they are for Okafor? Had they drafted Okafor, would they be clamoring the way that they are calling Russell a bust and that the front office is a bunch of morons, right?
I don't think too many people are doing that. That's just the vocal minority of stupid, as they always seem to do.
All right.
Maybe, because I think
you're
probably okay. Sorry, I was going to go into a detailed response.
No. I mean, it was you could offer either answer.
I'll go quickly. I think that a lot of the casual fans would be a lot more patient with Okafor because he was a big name, because he was Player of the Year or whatever, and because he won a national championship. But I think people paying attention are just fine with Russ.
Yeah, I think Okafor gets a longer leash in that situation simply just because it's Jahlil Okafor and he's a big man, and the Lakers probably don't trade for Roy Hibbert. So at that point, it's kind of like you're rolling with him. Whatever happens, happens. With Russell, there's other guards, so people are like, "Oh, he's sucking. We got to get him out of the game."
Yeah, I for one am extremely happy that they went with Russell, and I remain as such because of the way the NBA is going.
I had Russell number 3 on my draft board, so I agreed with the pick.
All right, so that does it for us here at Lakers Late Night. I'm sorry, this went a little bit long. I couldn't help myself. Huh?
We're giving the people what they want, Anthony. They want more content.
They want a lot more Fire Byron Scott. We gave them a whole bunch of Fire Byron Scott tonight. As you guys know, I don't like giving guests away, but the podcast is already recorded. Keep an eye out on Friday for Matt Moore to jump on the podcast. It was really, really, really good.
The blog Mamba, as he is known.
The Block Mama. I don't know if he is known as that, but
Some people know him as that. It's a thing.
give him a shout out. Call me the Blog Mama. See how he reacts
Oh,
to that.
he's been called it before. That wouldn't be the first time.
I don't know how I missed that. Anyway, Justin Russo, thank you very much for joining us tonight, especially on late notice like that. Same goes for you, Tom Fair. Thank you, everybody, for paying attention. This was one of the higher watch shows that we've ever had. So this will air tomorrow morning on iTunes. Thanks, guys.
No problem.
You usually say it's not necessarily a video.
Oh,
Anyway.
I don't even know why. I just like head bob. Like, yes,
we're still live.
It was super classy. It was
yes,
super.
sir. Like I should have curtsied in the back corner or something, you know.
We're still live, Anthony.
I know we're still live. I'll see you
Okay, just making sure you knew it before you said something stupid.